Hello everybody, I'm Brett the vet. I've always wanted to be a vet ever since I was a very young child. I can't remember ever wanting to do anything else. I surrounded myself with animals in all places in my parents' home. I had dogs and cats and guinea pigs and ducks and snakes in the drawers and frogs in the cupboards, and I used to hear these screams from my mother when she discovered something that I had found and was keeping somewhere in the house. Anyway, so that's a picture of me when I was very young, always drawn to animals. As a matter of course, when you keep animals and you start to really try and understand what they're about, you don't want to keep them anymore, because keeping animals involves a certain degree of cruelty, always. And for me, it was always trying to keep that cruelty to a minimum. And I felt by having fewer animals, that would be the best way to do it. Anyway, I naturally grew up and went to university. I studied for 5.5 years as a vet, qualified thinking I knew everything. I was now a doctor. It was only when I actually started working as a vet that I really started to learn about living things. I realized that we had been given a very limited perception of the world, a very narrow-minded field, in fact. So I started to find out things for myself. I started to really explore what life was all about through the animals I was treating, trying to understand them in different ways. I explored different ways of healing, diseases, cure, constantly trying to figure out, trying to get to the bottom of things, finding out why things really happen, trying to develop a sense of compassion, which is what I really want to talk about. In other words, how do I tell everybody about compassion? I mean, I can tell them that I'm compassionate and I can act compassionately, but what does that mean in essence? And for me, it came when I really started to really observe properly, actually look an animal in the eye and find out where that animal is coming from. What is that all about? And it's that deep sense of observation. If you really look at an animal and you don't feel something, if you meet the gaze and something doesn't happen inside of you, you're not really looking. That love is something that lifts the two of you when you connect, when you look. That's empathy, when you can put yourself in the shoes of another living being. And it only becomes compassion when you take action and start to do something about it. So I soon began to understand animals are very similar to us. What we were taught about at university was behavior. I actually learned that animals, they have joy and sorrow, pain and suffering in very much the same way that we do. I just want to linger on that one for a moment. And what I want to say about compassion ties into all the talks that we've heard so far. Because everyone that's spoken before me is compassionate in what they're doing. And the common thread is observation. Being able to see something and then doing something about it. Anyway, I needed to take it a little bit deeper than that. So the way I really started to understand the living world was when I bought my little farm in the Karoo about 10 years ago. I started growing vegetables, feeding the earth, actually getting down to grassroots level. So I could really see how life worked, how things grow, how things evolve, and starting to understand things in a different way. Slaughtering my own chickens soon turned me into a vegetarian and later vegan. I wanted to walk a path of complete non-violence. I didn't want to hurt anything unnecessarily. And so that, you know, when you're trying to live a sustainable life, you're trying to tread lightly on the earth, I think the majority of us think that we do in very superficial ways, like recycling or having a solar geyser, or maybe cutting down our international flights to one a year. And then you make a radical change, like altering your diet, and that really makes you focus your attention on actually what it is you stand for. Living in the Karoo, as work as a vet, I naturally see the animals, I work with the animals, and I originally thought, okay, now, well, the sheep that we're surrounded by sheep farms, that must be the kindest way to raise meat if we're going to eat meat. But I find it very difficult to ignore farmers chopping off the lamb's tails, chopping off their testicles, shearing sheep in the middle of winter when they most need their warm fleece, or leaving them out in the baking sun, 40 degrees, sweltering. I've seen sheep hiding trying to get shade in the shade of a barbed wire fence. And then I started to be very aware. Well, it was obvious. I was seeing a lot of dogs that were being poisoned in town and on farms. Lethal poison, illegal poison, being distributed in order to kill farmers' enemy number one, the jackal. And this is very distressing for me because it's all happening surreptitiously, and things were going on that we kind of knew about. We didn't know the extent of it, but I saw lots of dogs. I must have seen, hundreds of dogs that were poisoned in one way or another. And then I started seeing dogs that had been caught in gin traps. And then realized that this is one of the methods that the farmers are using to protect their flocks. Gin traps cause a very agonizing death. They kill 90% of the animals that are killed in gin traps are actually the non-target species. They're the bat-eared foxes, the eagles, the Cape foxes, all sorts of animals that weren't actually the problem. And then I thought, well, what can you actually do about this? And started investigating the ways of actually protecting the flock, because the flock's vulnerable. Sheep are vulnerable, they need to be protected. So there are a number of ways that can be used, and a combination of ways is probably the best. Donkeys are very protective over a flock. They will chase away a jackal. Llamas also do the same thing. Ostriches, kept among the sheep, will chase away predators. Livestock guardian dogs, a number of the farmers in this area have started using livestock guardian dogs that actually live with the sheep. And they will protect the sheep as if they were their own. Those are desert salukis that can be used in teams to mark the territory of the farm, and that acts as a deterrent for the jackals. The beauty of the Karoo includes the sky, includes the plants, includes the animals, and the landscape. And it's our duty to protect that heritage. Now, the idea that I want to leave you with is the idea of shepherding, which is one of the oldest arts in the world. And it's not practiced very much around here, but I think we can do it in a modern context. The tourist industry is kind of superseding the agricultural industry in our town. And I think the two can be combined in an interesting way. I think if we could train shepherds in the environment, teach them about plants, teach them about the animals, and the interconnectedness between those elements, we could create something worthwhile and something that could be of a great benefit to our town. We could train them as guides as well. It would be a vocation for these people to help the farmers protect what is valuable in this area, not only by reducing the number of losses to predators, but they could also be involved in, as Sue was mentioning earlier, they could be directly observant in the veldt and be part of the veldt restoration in terms of product from that point of view as well. The key thing to instill into someone who'd be doing a job like that, they need to be validated and valued and taught to observe, taught to be compassionate, because once they learn to observe, they go out into the field, they see what's wrong with the flock. If there's problems, they will notice them. They see what's going on in the land, and there can be this two-way conversation between the shepherd and the farmer. I think the last thing that I want to say is just when it comes to compassion, which is something that we can all do, we're all capable of, we need to think about what happens to your soul. And I think it's about the other. It's about creating happiness or well-being for another being. I think when you do that, you're actually also doing it for yourself.